Happy Book Lovers Day. We are starting very early today because Emma is in Australia. That's her time zone. This is our July book chat for our book, When Sleeping Women Wake. Just waiting for Emma to join. Hello, Jill. Thank you guys for joining super early. Happy Book Lovers Day. We're starting super early, just so you know. Emma is in Australia and she has joined us. This was a great read for our summer reading series. Hold on, let me get Emma in here. I appreciate you guys joining us. Hey, hi, Nikki. Thank you. Hello there.
Hi.
How are you?
Goodness, I'm so good. It's so nice to see you.
It is wonderful to see you. Thank you so much. I know, what time is it? Is it
It's
12 a.m.?
midnight.
It's midnight. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for staying up. We had to get the times coordinated, but as you see, people are coming in. They can watch later. So thank you so much. I see behind you the beautiful covers. Oh my gosh.
It's
Those
the
are gorgeous.
it's the Australian cover, the green one, and then the red one is the UK one.
They
So,
are gorgeous. And I have the US cover here.
yes.
Yes. So, how exciting. This is your debut novel. Well, first, let me go back. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jamise from Diverse Spines. I'm also over on Spines and Vines. This is our July book chat for our summer reading series with Emma Pei Yin, and the book is When Sleeping Women Wake. Amazing debut. Very, very well. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into a few questions.
Oh my gosh. Whenever I get asked that question, I'm like, should I just tell people like what I like to eat, what I like to do, or like where I come from? Um, well, I originally from the UK, born and raised. And when I was 15, I moved to Hong Kong with my parents. And then when I turned 20, I moved to Australia. And I always say I got stuck here because I never left. Um, but no,
But what a great place to be.
I mean, look, it's comfortable. It's definitely no Hong Kong. Like I'm not getting the neon lights and the pineapple buns, and so I
Hmm.
am constantly homesick, and I think that occurs at least twice a day. First when I
Yeah.
wake up, and then when I go to bed, I'm homesick. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this journey to writing your book. This is your debut. And so give us a little bit about the inspiration. What inspired you to tell the story?
I think the inspiration was quite of a slow burn. I don't think it was something where, I kind of just was cruising through the day and then the spark kind of came to me. It definitely was a story that had been very slowly producing in my mind, almost like a film over many
Hmm.
years. And so short scenes of the novel would sort of I think I just daydream a lot, actually. Let's just say that. So I always daydream these scenes. And it all came from when I was younger, living in the UK. My parents used to take me back to Hong Kong for Chinese New Year and the Autumn Mid Festival. And
Hmm.
during those times, we would stay at my grandparents' place. We have this ancestral village where my grandfather has so my grandfather is the third son of the third wife. And so the village basically
Okay.
we the eldest son has the big house, the second son has the middle house, and my grandpa had the small house. And so I remember how, during these family holidays, I would, you know, spend most of the day with my grandmother cooking and just being amongst the women. And then in the evenings after dinner, I would sit in our courtyard underneath this really beautiful lychee tree. And my grandfather would start to talk about the war and he'd start talking about the occupation.
Hmm.
And I think, I was only 8 or 9 when he was telling me these stories, I didn't comprehend the brutality of it. I didn't
Mm.
comprehend what occupation meant. I didn't
Yeah.
understand it, right? Um, and I couldn't understand this intense hatred that my grandfather seemed to have for a particular race of people. And I think it wasn't until, that I had moved away from Hong Kong that I started to yearn for my culture, and I started to get very homesick, and I wanted to know more about my grandparents' history. So I
Yeah.
started looking more into the Japanese occupation of Hong Kong, and I mean, there's a lot to learn. I'm still learning today, but some particular stories came up, and the story for this book just kind of came from that.
Yeah, it's I think I love the way that the story is told, and I actually learned a lot too, which made me kind of go and do more research. So can you talk a little about how your research was? What did you do to, frame the story with the research?
Well, the research was really interesting. So, you know, when you are going onto Google, say, just to search World War II historical stories, the first thing that comes up predominantly are stories written by white people.
Hmm.
And so when you try to look deeper, it's actually quite difficult because what I battled with was not only the fact that mainly white stories were being told more often, so I was lacking historical textbooks to kind of look for.
Yeah.
I was also battling the fact that when you're searching online, it's Asians in my culture don't like to talk about their past and their trauma much.
Hmm.
And so it's very rare to then also find, for example, uh, first-hand accounts of the
Yes.
time during the
Hmm.
war, especially from a Hong Kong person's perspective. So I really had to kind of just go off the stories that I remembered my grandfather telling me, and then the white people's stories, you
Yeah.
know. But it was also through that I came across this fantastic video on YouTube, but it's posted by the South China Morning Post, and this journalist interviews a woman, a Hong Kong Chinese woman, and she basically tells a story of how when she was a child, she joined this resistance movement in Hong Kong to fight back the Japanese. And that just opened up a whole new world to me because
Yeah.
the fact that I had spent years reading, firsthand accounts from white people and their experiences, this was the first time I could visually see someone who looked like my grandmother, who spoke
Hmm.
Cantonese and was recounting her childhood. And that to me was just fascinating. And she became actually the inspiration for one of the characters. The little girl How in my
Oh.
novel
Hmm.
is inspired
Hmm.
by her. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, because you're from a culture that, like you said, they don't like to talk about the past, don't like to talk about trauma. So it's hard to, you know, have the stories go forward, and
Mm.
it allows space for it to be told by, like you say, white authors, white historians. But, thankful for people like you and other authors who are going back and unearthing and telling these stories. Um, did you have any particular reaction from like family or anyone because you were, speaking out and sharing these stories?
No, nothing, negative.
Hmm.
I did tell my grandmother. So my grandmother and my grandmother basically raised me, until I was about 7 or 8. And then due to some family disputes later on in life, I actually lost touch with her. When you're still young and you're under the care of your parents, your allegiance kind of like sways towards the parents because
Hmm.
it's out of your control. So I actually lost contact with my grandmother for over 10 years. So it wasn't until a year before the book was due to come out that I connected with my uncle's wife on Instagram, and we started talking again, and then that connection then got me back to my grandmother, and we started talking. And I remember the first time I sent her a message on WhatsApp, and the message she just sent back, she was just crying, I was crying, we were
Yes.
both a mess. um but no, she's so proud and so happy, and
Yeah.
I've sent her photos of the covers. She's still in the UK, so hopefully I get to go see her next year.
Hmm.
She's very proud. Everyone else has been very nice, but I've always really just wanted my grandmother's response more than anyone else's.
Yeah. So let's talk about the title because it's a quiet, subtle title, but it's also very powerful, right? And so when sleeping women wake, what does waking mean to you in the context of this story? Like how did you land on this phrasing?
Well, at the start, the novel was not called When Sleeping Women Wake.
Mm.
That literally came at the very end when I wrote that last paragraph, that last sentence, and then it
Uh-huh.
hit me, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's the title."
Yeah.
Um, I had I had kind of gone about it where the original title was like Tangjia, which is just the family of Tang,
Hmm.
and I was just writing it with that title in mind. And as I wrote, and as these three female characters developed, I realized that one of the reasons I started to feel comfortable writing women with agency is because in my real life, I was experiencing the same thing. So I was exiting a very abusive relationship and entering into my, like self-healing kind of um,
Yes. Uh-huh.
era. And it's amazing when I look back actually on some of the older things I wrote. You can actually tell that I wasn't ready myself as just a woman. S-
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think that this title it not only speaks to the characters, I think it was very much my own journey as well in awakening from past traumas and understanding my own worth and what it means to understand that worth and what actions I now need to take, knowing my own value in life. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's powerful. Whew. Thank you, guys. People are coming in. We're talking to Emma Paying. I'm saying your name, Emma Paying,
Yeah, perfect.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
And we're talking about when sleeping women wake for our July book chat. Wow, that was pretty powerful. I needed that break. Kudos to you. Uh, this book could have easily, you're doing the historical research. It could have easily been like most books are when you're talking about war, right? It could have been about men, right? And war, because
Mm,
that's where most books go.
hmm.
But did you make a deliberate choice early on to center women in the story?
Honestly, no. So this
Mm,
actually goes back to when I first started writing this. I mean, this book took 10 years to write.
mhm,
And so when I do look at my earlier drafts, um, I had definitely placed the three women very front and center. But the point of view I was writing in was third person omniscient. So it
mhm,
wasn't, I never fully went into each character individually as much as it is now. And again, I
mhm.
think that is truly because I was distancing myself from this female agency because I truly didn't understand it at the time. So I didn't exactly put the male point of view in it. I just wasn't as connected to the women until more recently in the last few years, I'd say.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
there is a lot of sensory details going on in this book. I mean, I love how, music, food, scent, um, just poetry. How did you anchor readers into 1940s Hong Kong? Was there specific smells or sounds that or tastes that you felt carried emotional weight? Because I mean, it's all throughout the book.
I think it was really important for me to, you know, um, show two sides of Hong Kong because for many of
Hmm.
us, when we think of Hong Kong, immediately the first thing you think of is that post-war glitz and glamour, like the
Hmm.
skyscrapers, the neon
Yes.
lights, the
Uh-huh.
the buses, the trains, like it's full on city. And I think what I wanted to show was that despite the glamour of that, what is buried underneath is just as beautiful. And
Hmm.
so I really wanted to make sure that all the scenes where the characters were entering villages or the new territories away from more city life, we were getting that kind of scent of the jasmine that, you would kind
Yes.
of you'd breathe in just walking past, a slight breeze comes through and you get that hit of jasmine, and it's
Hmm.
very light, it's very subtle, but it it's so warming to the soul, isn't it, when you smell jasmine? I don't know
Yes.
what it is about jasmine. um and it's the same with food. I love food like so much, and I
I do
think it was
too.
really important. You know what, maybe I'll just write a cookbook next time. Like the foods of when sleeping
Yes.
women wake.
Yeah.
um I just, yeah, one of the most important things was having the characters eat in a tatanpeng, which now is, so they're basically like open air kind of like cafes that were
Hmm.
extremely popular post World War II and even a little bit before. And I think I read this article the other day where I think now there's only five official um of these food stalls left in Hong Kong. And I think that's really sad. So it's
Yeah.
like very slowly but surely, slices of history is just being taken away, like right in front of us. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's everywhere. You
Yes.
know, things are being slowly taken away. I love how you write about, and I'm probably going to mess this up, but you write about how they were wanting to eat, the husband wanting to eat more, British and English food. And then she's taken to one of these places and she's eating, I
Hmm.
forget the dish, but she describes how it tastes and how it just brings back memory. And that's the thing that food and music does. It brings back this sensory, it invokes
Yes.
a memory for us.
The beef brisket noodles.
Yes,
I
the beef
am.
brisket noodles. Yes, because she mentions it twice. She mentions it when she's eating, and then she mentions it later on. Just how good and how flavorful it was.
It's still a dish that I order here in Australia when I'm not feeling well. I always
Hmm.
go to that kind of noodle soup dish, and um yeah, there's something about it, like when the flavor hits your tongue, it's home. It's a
Yes.
it's a strange feeling, and it just you should be enjoying your food and you should be happy, but while you're eating it, you're actually quite sad.
Yeah. So let's dive into the occupation and talking about, because I think that when there's certain elements of history, you may like, okay, yeah, I know about that, but do you really know about it? Going into the history of it. And let's talk about the three women. I just, they're so layered, they're so complex, they're also different, but they're very resilient in their own way. They do what they need to do to survive. And so I'm going to let you
Yeah.
introduce the characters to us. We're not doing any spoilers, but just tell us a little about each character, each one.
Okay. So the novel is told in three POVs. So we have
Hmm.
a mother, her daughter, and their maid. The mother is Mingju, and then the daughter is Tiang, and the maid is Biyu. And the relationships that I wanted them to have, I already knew this many years ago, was for them to constantly have each other's backs.
Hmm.
And the reason why I thought that was so important um, is because I didn't quite have that growing up. So I was always in big Chinese like family situations where, the women were always with the women, the men were always with the men. But even amongst the women, we're so quiet and we're so reserved and we don't really want to share thoughts and feelings as much,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's probably to do with our culture. And I wanted to explore that just a little bit more. And writing Mingju actually was the biggest challenge for me because one, I'm not a mother, so I had to
Hmm.
really try to think about, if I had a daughter like Tiang, that kind of love, what would that love look like? And so then I had to think about my real life again and the relationship that I have with my mother, which is very good now, but when I was younger, not so good. And I think
Hmm.
mother-daughter relationships are always complicated.
Yes, they are.
I mean,
Yes,
there are so many books about that, right?
there
Um,
really is.
and I think understanding um, the complications of my relationship with my mother helped me create a character like Mingju because I was creating essentially a mother's love that I would have liked to have. And so
Hmm.
then when I thought about it that way, it became a lot easier to write her character.
Hmm.
And with BU, BU is just nothing but kindness.
Yes.
And yeah, she is completely inspired by my grandmother, just 100% selfless, you know. My grandmother got married when she was 15. It was an arranged marriage. Um, then she had three children, and then my grandfather went to the UK to work as a seaman and was never home in Hong Kong. So when I think of my grandmother, I think of this woman that has endured so much, but has given herself endlessly, and
Hmm.
that's the character of BU. And
I
I
love
hope I've
BU's
done a good job.
character.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. I was going to say, I hope I did a
yeah,
good job.
I loved her character. Oh my God. Even after Francine, just how she stepped in. It's just,
Yeah,
I loved everything about her character. And given everything that was going on, you know,
yeah.
just everything. I loved her character.
Well, thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tian
And we,
was easy to write to
oh, she was? Okay.
um, because there's a lot of me in her. And
Hmm.
my partner's read my book. He doesn't read many books, but he read this one, and I swear I didn't force him. Like he willingly read it. And he said, "This is so you." And I said, "Yeah, like we both hate the patriarchy. We can't stand men." And we constantly are so naive. Yes, it is me.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the context of the story and what's going on. Because I will say, as I was reading it, I was surprised by some of the men and how they showed up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was like, oh, wow. Uh, and then the love that transcends, right? Because as for the mother, it means she was in this marriage that she really didn't have any type of connection to the husband. But yeah, there's, oh my God, his name is escaping me. What's his name? Is it Harold? No,
Henry?
Harry.
Close.
Harry.
Henry.
Henry.
You're
And
close.
let's talk a little bit about because I love how you put books at the center as well. But talk about, a little bit about what was going on as far as like the with the occupation and why how they got separated.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Um, when I was researching for this book, I read The Rape of Nanking by Iris Chang. And that was just so insightful because that talks not only about the Battle of Shanghai, it also talks about after what happened after when Japan went from Shanghai and then they went down and invaded Nanking. And the things that I learnt, it's just so harrowing. I remember not being
Hmm.
able to eat really that well for several days because the book also comes with photos, that's very clearly documented in there. And that led me to then learning more about what happened in Hong Kong. And that takes us back to what we were talking about before, how most of the things I researched were written by white people. So
Hmm.
there's this website called guaylo.com, which translates to whiteman.com. And it's actually like these ex Hong Kong British civilians, Australians, Canadians that actually lived in Hong Kong during World War II. So when Japan invaded, we know exactly what happened to these people. They were taken as prisoners of war. They were either
Hmm.
immediately deported, sent on ships and sent away, or they were killed, or they were sent into these camps. We don't know much really then about what happened to a lot of Chinese people other than the fact that they were mass murdered,
Hmm.
raped, and killed. They were treated very much less than human. And so for me to try to even research into that, it was almost impossible. So when I do write Mingju and Tiang and Biyu and their experiences of escaping, I'm really going off my grandfather's stories.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's it's sad. It's sad what happened because they had to live on ration cards. They had to work, at some factories. They, occupation is just not. We're seeing it today, and I think it's just heartbreaking.
Yes, we are seeing it today. And you
Mm,
wonder about people. You wonder about people's well-being when they're taken into these camps, and you don't have any
yeah,
eyesight or view of what's happening to them, especially to women.
exactly. And
Yeah.
we all know that the Japanese Imperial Army, one of their tactics was sexual assault and
Hmm.
turning a lot of Chinese women into comfort women. Um,
Yes.
and that appears in the book as well. I briefly mentioned it. I do try not to glorify sexual assault that does occur in some literature. I'm not a huge fan of it.
Hmm.
But I try not to tiptoe around the subject matter either. Like there's a scene where, Tiang is trying to infiltrate, I suppose, a particular comfort station. And this place is called Namku Terrace, and it's a genuine, like, real place in Hong Kong that was used as a comfort station during World War II. And I read the other day, again in South China Morning Post, how they're tearing it down to build a 27-story apartment complex. And I just thought, my gosh, like, isn't that crazy? Just that happened in a place like that, and now it's just going to turn into an apartment complex.
You're
Can't,
gonna live
yeah,
where people were tortured, basically. I
yeah.
just hearing you say comfort station, it just like brings something in me. It's just such a it's a horrible word to use as women are being violated, a
Hmm.
comfort station. And
I agree.
I was going to talk about that moment because, and you bring it up, which is crazy, about when she's getting ready to invade. And I just thought, yes, you did. I mean, it's not like you said, this is what's happening here. It's kind of like you let the reader imagine. You didn't skip over it, you didn't gloss over it, but you put it there. And I instantly knew, I was listening to the audiobook, but then I went back and picked up the book so I could read that part. And it just gave me a very uneasy, unsettling, even with you mentioning it now, just an unsettling feeling,
Mm.
um, that they had these places where people could just go in.
There's actually a book by Jenny Chan, and I think it might be self-published even, and it's called The Undrowning Lotus. And it's a very short book, but it's got a small handful of first account stories by women in China and Hong Kong um, during the war that were taken to become these comfort women. And again, very difficult book to read, but worth reading just to learn some of their experiences.
And so thank you for that. That I know that probably was very hard to write and to, you know, experience, talking about that. Can you talk a little bit about the roles of the men in the story and who was your favorite to write?
Oh, oh my goodness. I don't know if I have a favorite.
Oh, okay.
That's that's maybe how much I dislike men right now. I can't even. No,
That's a
I
fair
think
assessment.
they all
That is
suck.
a fair
Um,
assessment.
no, I think Henry for me
Hmm.
was a breath of fresh air in the book, and he was much needed. And even though I'm very much not a pro romance writer,
Hmm.
um, I there was something about him when he first entered the story. He was not planned. He was not
Oh,
supposed to be in the book. It just so
okay.
happened that as I was writing about Mingju meeting her daughter's tutor,
Hmm.
suddenly my hands just went crazy typing, and suddenly these two characters were having a conversation, and I thought there's something more to explore here. So I would say Henry is a breath of fresh air. I have to agree with you that some of the men that are in this book, they do show up um, more than I've experienced in my life.
Yeah.
So, but this is fiction at the end of the day. So, um, um, but I also have to mention the husband, Wei. So he was just so adamant that the British were going to basically just stroll on through and save the day. And
Yes.
that's very true to a lot of Hong Kong Chinese men of the time, especially the ones that ran in more upper class
Hmm.
social circles. You know, they had many English friends and Canadian friends, and they really did believe in the strength and the power of the British. And so I really made sure that Wei was a character that was true to the people of that time.
Yeah, and to that class structure, right?
Yes, yes.
I mean, are you writing to about today? Is what I was reading this thinking like, man, this is yeah.
Yeah.
Dream of the Red Chamber is a book that you mentioned. It's all
It is a
throughout the book.
classic. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a classic. It's actually so I've been very honest about this the whole time. I've never finished the English translation because I don't read Chinese, but I know the story because, you know, family have always spoken of it. I've watched the Chinese movies and the TV shows, so I know what happens. And I think there's something about this particular translation that not everything is kind of falling through for me. So I found it very hard to finish the actual book. But the story, that book is weaved into this novel purely
Yes.
because of the two main characters in Dream of the Red Chamber, which is a man and a woman who essentially fall in love, and it's a very Romeo and Juliet thing where they're not fated to be together. And so I planted that in very early on, um, as well, to kind of already foreshadow Mingju's fate, I suppose. I suppose that's actually a spoiler in itself. Like, and it's a spoiler, I suppose. I have many friends who know the story, so immediately they were like, "Oh, I know what you're doing to this character," you know? Um,
Hmm.
and that's why it's there.
And so, yeah, Minju's fate. Oh gosh, and Francine. It's just, this is a book club meeting, so we're not trying to ruin it, but we are talking about the
Sorry.
romance. Sorry. So, oh my God, there's so much that I love about this book. It's like I think I need a reread because I feel like I've missed some things after talking to you. Um, let's talk about. Did you always know that you were going to break them up? I mean, have the women go. I mean, separate the mom from the daughter, and but then you have you're looking like yes, but then you have BU there protecting, kind of like doing what she did for Minju, right? But she's doing it for the
Yeah,
daughter. So can you
yeah.
talk about that?
Um, I always knew that that they had to split up because I mean that's the cost of war. That's the reality of war, you
True.
know.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and when you're writing towards a story about that, it would be rather unrealistic, I suppose, to just have the three of them always together. And I did think
Hmm.
for a split moment about how the story might look if they actually remained together. But then I thought that it would not serve Mingju's character arc that well. And because Mingju, to me, was essentially like a bird trapped in a cage, like her whole life. And so,
Entire.
dis
Yes.
exactly. So, despite her being torn away by her daughter and BU, it's also another sense of freedom that she's gaining because she has to really think about herself and what her life looks like on her own. And so I don't,
Hmm.
yeah, I think from the get-go they had to be separate. 100%. Yeah.
And was it deliberate, like where you placed them?
Yes. Yes. 100%. I knew that I wanted Mingju to experience life amongst men, but also kind of get more into the politics side of things because she's a very smart woman,
Hmm.
extremely educated for her time, but that was never put to use other than just managing a household. And so, again, to develop her, you know, character arc, I
Yeah.
really needed her to be in a situation where she could shine and actually use her brain.
And
Like,
so tell them, this is not a spoiler, tell them where you placed her because she was a translator.
yeah, so she essentially became a translator for a very powerful Japanese captain and worked at the head office, the headquarters, which was the Peninsula Hotel in Hong Kong. Yeah, it's still there today. So,
I was just so fascinated because I was like, I remember the names of look the names of the men keep escaping me. I don't know why.
Sa-
I
Sato is the
Sato, I
captain.
know. So
Mm.
who was the man that took her away and said basically saved her life? He placed her there.
Oh, you mean Hiroshi and Tiang? Hiroshi,
Yes,
yes,
yes.
yes. So Tiang ends up in the New Territories with BU, and they seek refuge with Francine in her village house,
Mm-hmm.
with her dad, who is very slowly succumbing to dementia. And
Yes,
so Hiroshi is, I'm like, how much can I say? Hiroshi is obviously a Japanese soldier who helps Tiang more than once.
yes. More than yes. It's so
More than once.
this story is so layered because I was so fascinated by the fact that you put Minju in that setting. You know, they're invaded by the Japanese, but then she goes there,
Mm,
and so much she becomes like a trusted advisor. I would say. I mean, she's translating for
yeah.
them, and it's just so interesting the things that happen
Mm,
that she's able to see that she has more exposure.
yeah. And
Yeah.
she kind of comes into her own. Like in throughout the story, you start to see like a power shift between her and Sato,
Hmm.
even through their dialogue, and how when she enters her office, she's more comfortable to sit at certain stages throughout their relationship. And yeah, so like little nuances like that. I worked really hard to make sure it was in the book.
Yeah, it was great, and the part that's pivotal, what happens to them, so to speak, Sato,
Mhm.
and yeah, it was done really really well. I yeah
Thank you. Oh,
for a
it
day.
paid off.
I mean, this is your day. This was really a really good book. I'm trying to scream it out loud to so many people to pick it up and to read it because it's done very well.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. I appreciate that so much.
I know that it's late on your side. I'm not going to keep you much longer, but I do want to know the cultural layers. You know, how do your own experiences, straddling UK, Hong Kong, and Australia influence, if at all, the dimensions of you telling the story?
I mean, of course, I think every writer has personal experiences that they kind
Hmm.
of always weave into their work. Growing up in the UK, it was really beautiful. I really do, when I look back on my childhood there, I look back on it quite fondly, even though the racism was quite intense. I grew up there in the
My daughter
90s,
lives
and
there now.
look, not much has changed. So um, the thing about the UK, the racism is not as simple as someone actually just looking at you and being like, you're Chinese, or
Hmm.
you're so and so. It's so much more layered than that. It's in the way they move when they're talking to you. It's the way that they look at you.
Hmm.
Um, and it's all these little subtleties that, a white person does not comprehend these
Correct.
experiences that we people of color do every single day. And I think that experience really helped me when I was writing the scene where Minju is sitting at like brunch, high tea with the three, the
Yes.
American, the Canadian wife, and I think that was
And I
very
love that
much
you named
like,
them that way. You said that.
well, that was also very intentional because,
Listen, now that I'm talking to you, it clicked for me. Oh, there was intent behind not giving them a name. You gave them where they were from. That was their name.
absolutely. I remember growing up in the UK, people always said to they would kind of call my mum, oh, that Chinese lady down the road, you know,
Hmm.
and I would think, oh, my mum's name is Amy, first and
Hmm.
foremost, but then when I was writing this, I thought back to those moments
Yeah.
that my mum experienced too, and I was like, these women are not going to have a name in my book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when she speak, you can talk a little bit about her sitting at that table with them and just yeah, it was very cringeworthy.
Yeah, I think that scene was a very deliberate attempt for me to not just show the sociocultural like nuances of the time because, I also really wanted to show a bit more like historical context through a scene like a social scene because when the British had occupied Hong Kong, um, there were still many places in Hong Kong that Chinese civilians were not allowed to enter. And that shows up in the scene where, one of the wives is about to have a party at the Hong Kong club, and, they're like, oh, well, we're so sorry, you can't come. And
Hmm.
so I tried to make sure that scene served a purpose, and the purpose truly was just to show the reader the racism of the time, and also to show that despite some people thinking that the British were not colonizers, but actually like saviors, is
Hmm.
wrong. They were very much
Yeah.
colonizers. And I think, yeah, that was the intent behind that scene in particular, was to show the history of that side. Yeah.
Yes, I love a good call out. So yes, that was definitely. Um, well, I'm going to let you go, but I have to know two things. The first is what are you working on? If you can share what's next, because I'm actually excited for what's next because this you knocked it out the park with this one. And then
Thank you.
what are you reading?
Oh my gosh, what am I reading? I'm reading How We Disappeared by Jing Li. And it's a book that came out, I think, in 2020, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. And so many of my friends kept telling me, you've got to read it, you've got to read it. And I held off because everyone also said it was really sad. So
Hmm.
it's a dual timeline
Hmm.
novel, and it's set in Singapore. One of the timelines is modern day Singapore. The other timeline is during the Japanese occupation of Singapore.
Okay.
And yeah, and I think I was avoiding reading that because I was writing about the Japanese occupation already. And so my brain was just, I could not take more of the Japanese
Right.
occupation.
Yes.
But I'm halfway through the book, and I think I've cried twice already.
Mm.
And it's not as though, and I haven't actually hit the parts where the invasion has happened yet. Like, I've cried purely because the way that Jing Li writes the relationship between a grandmother and a grandson is just, uh, it's just so beautiful. And I'm pretty sure she doesn't intend it to be. And I think she just knows how to write um, these real relationships that, people like me can read and think of our own grandmothers. And I
Yeah.
think that's why I ended up crying. So I highly recommend that book. And
Okay.
then with what I'm working on next, I'm actually allowed to say now, I realized,
Oh, okay.
just the other week, I found out that I don't have to keep it a secret anymore. So it'll be a historical fiction novel again. And this time it'll be a dual narrative between a brother and sister as they flee Nanking. When Japan invades Nanking, that's when the book opens, and they actually follow their uncle all the way to Liverpool in the UK, where the sister ends up in an arranged marriage. And the brother ends up working as a Chinese seaman for the British Navy. So, and that is inspired by my grandfather having been a seaman, but
Yeah.
he worked in the 70s, so it wasn't during World War II.
Hmm.
Um, but when I was researching this, I found that in 2016, the British Home Office actually declassified some documents that actually shows how Chinese seamen after World War II were illegally deported from the UK. And many of these Chinese men had actually formed relationships with women in Liverpool and around the UK and got married, had children, they had homes, and they were just taken and never, never returned again. So I feel
Sounds
there's
familiar.
something there.
Hmm. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
I'm excited. I can't wait. I We will definitely promote and do all the things that we need to do, but I'm excited to see what's next. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that it's late. You guys, please send all your good vibes because she's in Australia and it's probably closer to 1 a.m. now. But thank you so much for joining us. And make sure if you don't have a copy to get a copy of When Sleeping Women Wake. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.